Hello everyone, welcome to StudyTravel TV Live, a show of news, statistics and opinion, now on our new broadcast day of Wednesday. I'm Bethan Norris, Senior Editor of StudyTravel magazine.
Hello everyone, I'm Matthew Knott, News Editor of StudyTravel magazine. Before we get started, for the best viewing experience, please put the call in side-by-side speaker view. You'll see an icon in the top right corner where you can select the view.
In today's broadcast, we'll start with a news story and then we will be joined by our guests this week, Oscar Porras, President of Spanish Agency Association, Aseproce, and Managing Director of Midleton School in Spain, and Jonathan Swindell, Chief Executive of Quality English.
We'll then introduce a few more stories as we go through the show. If you have any questions for the presenters or guest speakers or comments on the stories, please post them in the chat box and we will read them out at the end. And a big thank you to our sponsor this week, Felka. Okay then, so let's have a look at our first story this week. And we will begin in Ireland, where ELT Association Marketing English in Ireland called for a date when schools can resume student recruitment and criticised what it called a discriminatory government policy that allows universities to hold full lectures and for tourists to enter the country while language schools can't recruit students.
English language schools in Ireland were allowed to reopen in July to teach existing students who were already in the country. But the government said at that time there was no basis for the recruitment of new international students, a position it still holds despite a relaxation of border controls.
MEI said without evidence to back it up, language students have been singled out as being a greater risk than university students or tourists.
The association said that with continued support and a clear timeline, the sector can quickly bounce back, but said if schools are not given a recruitment date to work towards, some may not make it through the winter. Okay, at this point, we'd like to introduce our guests, Oscar and Jonathan.
Hi.
Hello, Oscar. Hello. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this program. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Jonathan.
Hi.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Before we go any further, I think we have to congratulate both Aseproce and Quality English for joining the StudyTravel Superstar Hall of Fame last week after winning your respective association categories for a fifth time. So just very quickly, what did that mean for your associations and your members? Oscar.
Well, we are delighted. I have to say that we are really delighted because it's been a really difficult year for both the schools and agents, and this award means a lot for us, and we are delighted. So thank you very much to all the schools that they voted as a Aseproce association.
Thank you, John.
Yeah, absolutely huge for us. As I said at the time, as Oscar's just said, what a challenging time we've all been through, and to have something to celebrate and a recognition of our efforts is massive. So again, big thanks to our agents for voting, to the fantastic Quality English schools, and to you guys, StudyTravel, for what was a lovely event and quite emotional at times.
Okay, thank you. So back to the island story. Jonathan, we've heard from a few destinations that the language sector may have been discriminated against or perhaps treated unfairly. In our last show, Darren Conway of English New Zealand highlighted the disparities in the way the sectors have been treated. And Andrew Manjon in the same StudyTravel TV broadcast thought that the Maltese government may have shown a discriminatory attitude towards language schools when shutting them, but leaving nightclubs and restaurants open. Have some of your members also felt this may be the case with their own governments?
Yeah, I think there's certainly a feeling of discrimination, or at least a lack of awareness or understanding of the sector. I think a lot of discrimination in life does come from a severe lack of understanding. So perhaps if we can raise awareness of the sector a bit more and gradually bring it in line with other sectors, with higher education and so on, then things will improve. I think in the UK and Ireland in particular, and all destinations really, schools have done a lot to lobby governments and to raise the issue, but often the answers haven't been forthcoming and communication has been slow. I think in Malta, the situation where students can go, well, students are there, but they're not allowed in class, but they are allowed to go to restaurants and cafes and certain nightclubs and so on is absolutely crazy. You know, the reason they went there was to go and learn English. So yeah, I think discrimination possibly, but certainly a lack of awareness and appreciation of the sector.
Is it maybe because language travel is a little bit of a soft target and domestic voters don't see international students or sort of don't mind them being sort of sent home or refused entry in these circumstances?
Yeah, I think it can be seen as a bit of a soft target, but that's why we need to raise awareness of it and bring it in line with other sectors of education. And I think that English UK and others are trying to work hard to do that, and that needs to continue in the UK and in other countries as well.
Okay, Oscar, Ireland is a major destination for Spanish students, with Spain constantly ranking second in the StudyTravel magazine market analysis each year, with around 20% of students there being Spanish. From Monday this week, indoor venues in Ireland are allowed to have 60% capacity for events for people who are vaccinated, while outdoor venues can hold 75% capacity for vaccinated people. Restrictions on high-risk activities, including nightclubs, will be lifted from the 22nd of October. Yet there's still no word on recruiting international students. It does seem like language travel has been hung out to dry. Do you agree?
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't know what are the reasons behind for some governments to take certain decisions, but it is true that I was in Dublin last week with groups of students that they are going to high schools, and obviously that business is open. So students that they want to do a high school program in Ireland, they can do it, and they can stay there for, I don't know, 8 weeks, 1 term or 1 full academic year. So I don't see why international, like language students, cannot go into Ireland. So I think it is a shame, and at the same time, it shows that the government in Ireland doesn't know how much this industry is giving to the country, and the money that is involved. And it is not only the schools or the residencies or the host family, it is also the money that these students are taking into the country. So sometimes it is really difficult to understand what are the reasons for the government to take these decisions. But obviously, I know that MEI is pushing hard to get a date, as you said before, for the schools to reopen for new students. But I think that the government should be more aware of this industry, that I think that sometimes they see students all around in Dublin and in other important cities. I think that they are not still aware 100% of what is going on.
It's a good point, because in 2019, the global ELT sector was worth some $8.9 billion, according to StudyTravel magazine's global market report. That's based on the 8 major English language destinations, while if we have France, Japan, Spain, Italy, and French-speaking Canada, that added at least another $3.6 billion, our research showed. You're both involved in FELCA and GALA, respectively, through the associations that you manage. Are these organisations discussing plans to highlight that global sense of scale of the sector, as FELCA and GALA are responsible for probably more than half of the market?
I think so. I think it's important for GALA to do it. Individually, it's important for the actual country associations to be doing, like English UK and so on. But I think, to highlight these huge figures has to be done collectively. And I think GALA is a very good platform to do that. We're not a country association. Obviously, we represent the schools in 9 different countries, but we're very happy to support the country associations individually or collectively through GALA.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Jonathan. Like in FELCA, we also collect the data of the students that we are sending between all the associations, all the national associations. And it's true that we need to push hard, and we need to show the data that we have from all the countries to show that we are a big industry, and that we create jobs, and that we send students all over the world, and that the airlines sometimes they want us because we are making these passengers travel. And when these industries stop, it affects other industries, other third industries. So I think that, yeah, from FELCA, I think that Paolo, that is our president at the moment, is also working hard to show this to different governments and different sectors.
Okay, let's take another story. higher education focused agency group IDP Education released its report for the 2021 financial year last week, showing a 10% drop in revenue for the 12 months to June 2021 to $528 million.
Higher education student placements declined by 25% for the year to 38,100, although this was mainly driven by a 40% drop for Australia. Non-Australia placements dropped by only 12%, and the UK actually increased slightly, IDP said.
Revenue from the IELTS exam, which IDP co-owns with the British Council and Cambridge Assessment English, remained steady, and the volume of tests taken at IDP-operated centres increased by 5% to 1.14 million.
So tertiary programs have held their ground during the pandemic a little bit more than other sectors, as they are longer term. And also exam programs seem to have been robust in performance due to them sometimes being necessary for entry onto secondary, tertiary courses, or even into employment. Oscar, have your members still been booking students onto exam programs, and have these been online or in person?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the lockdown last year that we were talking before, and I didn't remember if it was 2019 or 2020, because for me it seems like a long time since we started with this pandemic. But it's true that the agencies and the students, they wanted to continue training, and when we were in the middle of the lockdown with very little to do, apart from watching Netflix and other channels like that, people wanted to learn English and people wanted to learn languages, and they were doing these online programs, and we had really a boom of students inquiring for these programs. And it's true that after something so, let's say, impersonal, it's not impersonal because there is one person on the other side, but it's true that after something like that, you really want to certify your level of English, or certify your level of the language, of whatever language. And it's true that we have noticed that when students, they are inquiring about a language course, they always want to focus that language course finishing and ending with a certificate like IELTS or Cambridge or something like that. So yes, there has been an increase in the interest of students for this.
Okay, and Jonathan, have exam courses featured in your members' enhanced online offerings over the last year, do you think?
Yeah, they're definitely featured. Obviously, all of our schools went online early last year. Many of them had been doing online courses for many years before, so they were in a good place to do so. I think exam courses became a big feature, but I wouldn't necessarily say they increased, or they caused an increase in online enrollments necessarily. There were a lot of students who were in place who then, went online and continued their exam prep courses and potentially did an examination online. So yeah, I mean, they've been an important part of it, but possibly no bigger than any other type of online course.
Well, keeping with the online exam thread, our next story is that Pearson has announced that it will launch an online remote proctored version of the PTE academic exam from November 16th.
Pearson also announced that the format of the PTE academic test, both at test centres and online, will be reduced from 3 hours to 2 hours. The exam structure, question types and scoring scale will remain the same.
Oscar, do you have any experience with these remote proctored exams? I think most of the major providers are now have a sort of at-home testing version. And are there any concerns about the security of online testing from your agencies or students, parents?
Well, years ago, when Cambridge started with the computer-based exams, people were very reluctant in Spain because they wanted to do it in one place, so that in the case they had any technical issue, that they could go and so that there is no computer or anything, just in case they had any technical issue. But now, after the pandemic, I think we have all become more technological, and we see this like something more flexible. So I would say that our experience with this has been positive, and there hasn't been any big issue. And now, for example, Pearson that is shortening this exam, I think it is fantastic, because what the students want sometimes is to certify their level of the language, but they don't want to be 4 hours, something like that. So from the parents and from the families, there is certain security about this, and we don't see that they were so reluctant as they were before.
Okay, good.
Okay, and John, do you think online remote proctored exams will be the way forward for the testing sector?
I think there'll always be a place for face-to-face exams, because after all, one of the main attractions of EFL is to actually go to the country, to throw yourself into the culture and to have those experiences. So I think there's always going to be a place for the face-to-face exams. But obviously now there are more, face-to-face exam preparation courses and face-to-face exams, obviously. But obviously now with the more options available for these online examinations, then students have that ability to do a course face-to-face and possibly do the exam wherever they are when they go home, and so on. So I think there's always going to be a place for the face-to-face side.
Okay, thank you. Let's take another story then. So the government of New South Wales and Study New South Wales have announced funding grants of $360,000 to support a number of schemes related to international students.
The International Student Education Agents Association, an association of more than 50 onshore and inbound agencies, has received a $20,000 grant to produce a report on the impact of COVID-19 and to develop a recovery strategy for the agency sector.
Other funded projects include $100,000 to create a digital mental health toolkit for international students and other schemes to boost students' employability.
So, Jonathan, this is an interesting move for New South Wales to pay attention to the agency sector, and it'll be interesting to see if ISEAA comes up with new data or solutions. But overall, what is needed is for Australia to just open its borders and let international students in. Do you agree?
Quite simply, yes, completely. There's no, I mean, the funding is fantastic. It's great, and I'm sure other regions and other countries would be very envious of this type of funding. But at the end of the day, the borders need to open and the students need to be able to return. And I'm sure Australia, like all destinations, will bounce back, hopefully sooner rather than later. But like you say, the key thing is actually unlocking those borders.
Oscar, if Aseproce produced a research report on the impact of COVID-19 on agents and made a recovery strategy for the agency sector, what do you think the main points of that report would be?
Well, I would say that the most important one is that the summer business has been really hit by this pandemic, like with the summer junior programs that they have been running for the last 2 years. And many agencies, they are now like really thinking what to do for next year, because they have been 2 years with no business, and some of them they have switched to other programs. Like some of them they are doing high school programs that they were not doing before, and they are more focused on other programs. So going back to the summer junior business program, it seems like a little bit of a challenge for some of them, because it's like starting from the scratch again. And when we meet the agents, we talk a lot about this, and if it is really worth it to continue with this business, or this side of this business, or we just have to focus on other areas of the business. And this is coming after a good number of years where the adults market has been difficult as well, with the agencies every time selling less and less, because students, they normally go directly to the schools. There is a lot of direct bookings, and every time we have to sell cheaper and cheaper to be competitive, because otherwise they will go to the school directly. So I think that if I had to do a wish list, I would say that it would be like recovering this business, the summer business, that it is so important for the Spanish agencies. And I would say that getting some support from the governments, not only from the Spanish government, but from other governments, and also the airlines, because I think that we need to get support from the airlines when we are sending hundreds of students in the summer, that they are not that they are giving us a fair price for the flight tickets, because sometimes before the pandemic we had some couple of years with really expensive flight tickets, and we need to go back to good prices to be competitive and to try to recover this summer business that has disappeared for 2 years.
Okay, and the mental health toolkit is a nice initiative. Obviously, international students, both those that have been overseas throughout the pandemic and those that couldn't travel, have suffered. Is student mental health something you've discussed in your associations? And Jonathan, do you want to go first?
Yeah, certainly something we've looked at, and we've run a couple of workshops for our schools on mental health issues, and not just to prepare our schools and their staff for the issues that the students may have, but also for their own benefit. So it's definitely something we've been focusing on, and definitely something that's very much on the agenda at the moment. You know, there are students, everybody hasn't been traveling for so long, so to get back on a plane to go to a new country, or to go to a country for the first time, it's going to be a big shock to students. And you know, even as school staff opening up again and having a busy school, everybody needs to be mentally prepared. So yeah, very much big time.
Okay,
what about you, Oscar?
Absolutely, I completely agree with Jonathan. So it's true that it's been a long time since students they were flying to their destinations, and I am sure that these. And I was listening the other day to a psychologist saying that we will see the effect of the lockdown probably in a few months, because this is not automatic. And when people start traveling again, we will see in the students like fears and different things that we haven't seen before. And I think it will be very important for both the schools and agents to work together and giving support to the students when traveling, because for many of them will be like the first time traveling in probably a couple of years.
Okay, let's take one last topic. As we mentioned at the beginning of the show, the StudyTravel Star Awards took place last week, held during a break in the StudyTravel Alpha UK online conference, with 425 attendees, including 294 agents and 109 educators.
Yes, this certainly shows that the sector is still very keen to communicate with each other, and actually StudyTravel has now hosted 125 online conferences since the beginning of the pandemic. You both organise association workshops as well, and Oscar, Aseproce have their annual workshop scheduled for, is it 4th of November?
4th of November,
in
exactly.
Madrid, yeah,
exactly.
As a face-to-face event. So give us a little promotion speech and tell us how the plans are going.
Well, basically, initially, we just wanted to do it on face-to-face, because we thought it was going to be a good opportunity to restart again these workshops. And our workshop is really, really small. We don't take more than 60 educators. So it's something really, well, you've seen it yourself, and it's something small. But I think it is nice to meet everybody in Madrid. And for our agency, it's really, really positive, because they can take their own staff to the meetings, so they can get to know the school owners or the decision makers these days that we are celebrating the workshop. So as I said initially, we were going to do it face-to-face, but there are certain countries that they have limitations and recommendations from their governments for avoiding, which is not an essential travel. And so we decided to do this workshop half day online and half day face-to-face. So we will have the day before the workshop, the face-to-face workshop, we will have an online version of the workshop, when obviously there will be a reduced price for the educators coming to that. And then we will do it smaller face-to-face, and we hope that we get at least 30 or 40 schools coming to that. It will be nice to meet them again in person, and we hope to have people basically from Europe. We know that it's going to be difficult to get people from North America and people from Australia, but we know of many schools that they have already confirmed that they will be coming to that, and we are very happy, because our agents are eager to to meet again schools and to see what has happened with the schools, because sometimes we get this feeling, no, that what has happened with this school after several months, because they've been closed, they will reopen again, they will keep the same staff. So I think that we need to have these conversations with the schools to see what is the status of the school, and to see what is happening before going and sending business to the schools.
Okay, it's a tricky time to be organising in-person events, but I do know the StudyTravel team is looking at having their first such conference for nearly 2 years in Malaga in January. Jonathan, what plans have QE got for your own events in 2022?
Well, yes, I mean, we've been running our e-missions online since before the pandemic, so we're going to continue with those. We've been considering running face-to-face events this autumn, but we just don't think it's quite the right time to relaunch those. So we're going to probably hold off until early next year and probably focus on Europe for the first 2 or 3 events. So yeah, that's the plan really. We'll get started most likely in March and look forward to, or we can't wait in fact to start our missions again, because they're very effective events and we can't wait to see our schools and to meet the agents again face to face. But in the meantime, yeah, we're going to support Oscar's event, the Aseproce event in November, and also we're co-sponsoring the IALCA event, the Salon del Lingue, at the end of November. So we're encouraging our schools to attend that as well. And that as an association, we'll be back on the road in early 2022, and hopefully at Healthy Malaga as well.
Great.
I do hope so. Okay, well, that brings us up to date with all the news and goings on in the industry. At this point, we'll completely open up to the audience to see if there are any questions for our guests or for the StudyTravel team. These can be on any of the stories or topics we have discussed today. Do please put your name and organisation in your Zoom name or in the question so we can see who they're from. Just while we have a look there, I do have a question that was sent to me. Jonathan, have you noticed that we talked about sort of online programs, but have you noticed QE schools are sort of branching away from sort of English language, or doing sort of hybrid programs or vocational programs or higher education?
Not so much, no. I mean, there's always new innovations in the courses and meeting the demands of the market, but no, there hasn't been too much stray from their expertise.
Okay, Oscar asked, have you found that Spanish agents are diversifying more into higher education products, given that the tertiary sector seems to have been more resilient during the COVID pandemic?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that, and I think I was mentioning this before, like there were agencies that they were sending short stay groups and they were focused on business, summer business. They switched and they are doing now mostly high school programs, because this is where there is business at the moment. So I think that this was something that people thought that you needed to be really specialized, and now they have had time to research a little bit about these programs, and they are sending students to these programs, and obviously also to higher education, universities, masters, and other programs. So I think that probably these agencies that they were sending students to other programs that they haven't been possible to run at the moment, they will go back to that. But it's true that agencies have had to readapt a little bit to the situation that we are living at the moment.
Okay, very good. And got one more question here for Oscar. So we've talked about online conferences just there. As an agent, how useful have they been for you? And have you made any new partners through online events in the last year?
I think they're always useful. I think that more than making new partners, it is a good opportunity to meet your existing partners, because I think this pandemic has made us, as we were working from home, and we have lost the contact with some of the schools and the providers that we've been working with for years. And it has happened that you probably go to Alfie London, Alfie Malaga, and ISEF. That is normally what I do every year. And you meet all the people you know and all the people you work with in this industry. And obviously to QE, when they come to Spain, I always go to the workshops. But if you don't go to that, it's difficult normally to keep in touch with the school. So I wouldn't say that creating new business opportunities, but at least to establish contact with your existing partners and to make plans for the future. I think that's very interesting.
Okay, great. Thank you. Doesn't look like we have any more questions in the chat there. So so that looks like the end of our Q&A, which brings us to the end of this week's StudyTravel TV Live. We hope everybody enjoyed it. If you'd like to come along to the next event, which will be on the 22nd of September, please visit the StudyTravel TV Live page on the StudyTravel network, which you can find under the magazine section in the menu.
And we'll be announcing the guest speakers for the next broadcast on this page. And you can also find recordings of this episode and past episodes in the listing at the bottom.
Finally, we'd like to say a big thank you to our special guest today, Oscar. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
And best of luck with the workshop in a few weeks.
Thank you very much.
And Jonathan, thank you once again. We look forward to seeing you again soon. And congratulations both once again on becoming StudyTravel Superstar Associations. You can see the full list of winners on our website.
And thank you again to our sponsor this week, Felka. And thank you to everyone for watching. Goodbye.